In 1996, John and Patsy Ramsey lived a quiet, affluent life in Boulder, Colorado. John was the president of a successful computer company, and the family had recently settled into a large home in a wealthy neighborhood. Their youngest child was 6-year-old JonBenét. She frequently competed in child beauty pageants, a detail that would soon draw intense international media scrutiny to the family. At 5:52 a.m. on the morning of December 26th, Patsy Ramsey called 911 to report her daughter missing. She told the dispatcher she had just discovered a ransom note on the kitchen staircase. This document was highly unusual. It spanned 2.5 handwritten pages, an extreme length to be written at a crime scene, and demanded a highly specific sum, exactly $118,000. These initial anomalies didn't lead to a clear suspect. Instead, they created a growing list of questions that would eventually pull investigators into two competing camps. The initial police response during the crucial golden hours of the investigation was deeply flawed. Believing they were dealing with an active kidnapping, responding officers only cordoned off JonBenét's bedroom. This created a vacuum. Friends, victim advocates, and the family's minister arrived at the home to show support and moved freely through the unsealed rooms. Visitors picked up items and cleaned surfaces in the kitchen, inadvertently wiping away potential physical evidence. During a cursory search, a responding officer went down to the basement. He stopped in front of a door secured by a wooden latch at the top of the frame. Assuming a kidnapper couldn't have latched the door from the inside and then escaped, he walked away without opening it. At 1 p.m., a detective asked John Ramsey and a family friend to search the house for anything amiss. John opened that overlooked latched door and found his daughter's body. He immediately picked her up and rushed upstairs. By moving the body, the pristine context of the crime scene was shattered. Critical forensic markers were disturbed before a specialized team could process the room, creating an evidentiary void that makes the timeline nearly impossible to reconstruct. The subsequent autopsy determined that JonBenét died from asphyxia by strangulation, associated with a severe skull fracture. The medical examiner also noted an improvised garrote tied around her neck, fashioned from nylon cord and the broken handle of a paintbrush. From this point, the interpretation of the facts begins to diverge. Take the ransom note. Police investigators argued it was staged by the parents, noting it was written using a pen and notepad from the Ramsey home, and the $118,000 demand matched the precise amount of John Ramsey's recent work bonus. But viewed through the lens of an intruder theory, the note tells a different story. The text borrows dialogue from popular action movies, and an outsider who knew the bonus amount could have targeted the family specifically for that money. This split perspective applies to the house itself. Initial police walkthroughs noted no obvious signs of forced entry, heavily supporting the theory that the killer was already inside. This diagram maps the basement layout, which a retired homicide detective used to argue for an intruder. He pointed out a broken window with a suitcase beneath it, suggesting an entry point. Yet critics countered that an intact cobweb stretched across that very window. The evidence presented in the basement and on the notepad exists in a state of contradiction. Instead of clarifying the events of that night, these details are used to support two entirely different narratives. This ambiguity created severe institutional friction. Boulder police focused almost exclusively on the family, while the district attorney's office increasingly favored the intruder hypothesis. In 1999, a grand jury voted to indict the parents on charges of child endangerment. However, the district attorney refused to sign the indictment, concluding there was insufficient evidence to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt in a criminal trial. This graphic illustrates a forensic shift that occurred in 2003. Investigators extracted material from touch DNA, microscopic skin cells left on JonBenét's clothing, to isolate a genetic profile belonging to an unidentified male. When those markers were compared against John, Patsy, and JonBenét's brother Burke, they were a complete mismatch. Relying on this data, a new district attorney publicly exonerated the Ramsey family in 2008. Modern forensic experts, however, push back on treating this as definitive proof. We shed skin cells constantly. Trace DNA can easily be deposited through casual, benign contact during the manufacturing or packaging of a piece of clothing, meaning the profile might not belong to the killer at all. Instead of delivering objective truth, the evolution of forensic science simply added a new layer of unresolvable ambiguity to the stalemate. The intense media frenzy surrounding the investigation generated years of distracting noise. This peaked in August 2006 when a 41-year-old schoolteacher named John Mark Carr was arrested in Thailand after confessing to the murder. Carr's confession collapsed almost immediately upon scrutiny. His DNA did not match the trace evidence found at the crime scene, and his statements lacked factual accuracy regarding basic details of the timeline and the house. The enduring mystery took a heavy human toll. The Ramseys spent years filing defamation lawsuits to defend themselves against media accusations. In 2006, just months before Carr's false confession meant headlines, Patsy Ramsey died of ovarian cancer at age 49. Today, the Boulder Police Department continues to treat the murder as an open, active homicide investigation, reviewing thousands of tips and processing new evidence as forensic testing methods improve. Beneath the competing theories and the decades of debate lies a 6-year-old girl. Her final hours remain tragically obscured, permanently fractured by the deeply compromised evidence of that very first morning.